Good evening, I'm Bersatu Michael and you're watching Kini News, the show that brings you today's biggest stories. Hajiji Noor is set to be sworn in as the next Sabah Chief Minister tomorrow after receiving an invitation from Governor Juhar Mahiruddin. This happened after BN decided it would give up its claim over the position to the PN leader. It appears we will not get to see Sabah BN Chief Bung Moktar Radin become the state's new Chief Minister this time, as the party has finally agreed to make way for the state's Perikatan National Chief Hajiji Noor to take up the position. In a press conference this afternoon, Gabungan Rakyat Sabah announced that he arrived at a consensus to name Hajiji as their Chief Minister candidate. This was announced by Hajiji in a joint press conference with Bung at a hotel in Kota Kinabalu, which was used as the command centre for PN during the state election.
Saya dipahamkan besok kita akan mengangkat sumpah. Jadi inilah mandat rakyat yang telah berikan kepada kami. Kami akan tunaikan tanggungjawab kami kepada rakyat untuk memastikan Sabah terus maju ke depan dan juga akan terus membuat pembelaan kepada rakyat dan akan sedaya upaya melakukan yang terbaik, terutama sekali menunaikan tanggungjawab mengikut aku janji atau manifesto yang telah kita lancarkan baru-baru ini.
Meanwhile, Bung said he believed that after Hajiji had been sworn in as the new Chief Minister, the new state government will be able to focus on taking care of the people.
Kami telah membuat persetujuan atas dasar kesedaran, keyakinan bahawa kerajaan baru yang ditubuhkan ini mampu untuk memulihkan semangat rakyat yang selama ini telah hilang disebabkan oleh pemerintahan kerajaan yang tidak prihatin kepada rakyat. Jadi memang satu tanggungjawab yang besar untuk kerajaan negeri ini.
The Sabah polls on September 26 saw GRS winning a total of 38 seats out of the 73, of which PN won 17, BN won 14 and PBS won 7. GRS also claimed it had gained the support of all three independent candidates. Warisan Plus itself won 29 seats, out of which Warisan won 23, DAP won 6, meanwhile PKR won 2 seats and UPCO secured 1. After the Sabah election, many got on a plane back to Peninsular Malaysia. However, due to the compulsory COVID-19 testing, some were stuck at the airport for hours. Health officials at KLIA were overwhelmed by the surge of passengers returning from Sabah on Sunday, which resulted in some travellers being forced to wait up to 8 hours to undergo COVID-19 screening. KiniTV spoke to 2 passengers among the hundreds who were stranded for hours yesterday. ID Amin, who arrived at KLIA 2 at 7:30 p.m, had to wait for 8 hours to complete the COVID-19 test and registration process.
Ada setengah orang tu daripada pukul 1 petang masih tak selesai. Time tu I landing pukul 7.30. So kita orang ni sekarang dah pukul 12.45 still beratur lagi. So tadi what happened was ada few volunteers, they went to talk to KKM orang. And then siapa entah bagi air, so ada air itu pun lepas kita orang before weekend ni kita tanya orang ada dapat air apa-apa, semua kita tak dapat apa-apa. So dapat air satu dengan roti, yang roti 30 sen lah yang ban tu. Sekarang ni line dah bergerak sikit, tapi masalah sekarang ni air line ni 7.30, sekarang 12.45. 5 jam baru nak pindah, memang tak logik lah. So the situation a bit chaotic, budak nangis, orang tua like so kita orang semua consensus, I mean Malaysians being Malaysians, we let the yang 60 tahun ke atas pergi depan dulu dengan ada ayah siapa yang bawa budak lah, kita orang bagi orang pergi depan dulu. It's a consensus lah, on effort, tapi bukan on KKM's instruction lah, dari main.
Meanwhile, Nazirul Roslan, who arrived at KLIA 2 at 7 p.m, had to wait 3 hours for COVID-19 screening and subsequently was made to wait another 3 hours for the registration process.
Masa saya sampai tadi, agak ramai orang. Sebab angka giliran saya sendiri pun 813. Jadi memang suasana kat sini, kat KLIA ni agak padat lah, sebab dia tiba 3 flight hampir serentak, memang jarak waktu dia yang rapat. Dia jadi crowded sikit lah kat sini. Kadang orang pun agak rapat sikit. Tak ada, penjarakan tu ada tapi tak dapat nak dikawal sangat sebab terlalu ramai. apa yang saya tengok semua tak ada komplain sebab semua dah tahu. Jadi dah tahu pun tanggungjawab dah masing-masing dah tahu akan dikuarantin. Tak ada komplain. Dia orang pun bagi kerjasama dengan petugas-petugas yang buat saringan, yang buat interview untuk gelang tu semua tak ada masalah. Apa yang saya tengok, yang warga emas dengan kanak-kanak dia orang dah lepaskan dulu, jalankan dulu, selesaikan dulu, jadi tinggal yang sihat-sihat ni je lah.
Following complaints of long queues, Health Minister Adham Baba and Health Ministry Director General Dr. Noresham Abdullah conducted a check on KLIA and KLIA-2 in the wee hours of Monday. COVID-19 tests have been made compulsory for passengers arriving from Sabah, which is the new epicenter of the country's outbreak. Travellers are also tagged and must undergo a 14-day home quarantine order. According to Dr. Hisham, the long waiting time for travellers wasn't due to the lack of Health Ministry staff, but happened as a result of overwhelming number of passengers returning from Sabah. Cases from Sabah continue to lead the national tally. Here's Malaysia's latest COVID-19 situation. Malaysia reported 115 new COVID-19 cases today, pushing the number of active cases beyond the 1,000 mark. From the 115 new cases, only 3 were imported cases. The remaining 112 were local transmissions. Sabah continues to top the list as the state with the highest number of new infections, with 98 cases today. Other states have also reported 11 cases involving people who came from Sabah. Meanwhile, Selangor reported 11 cases, with Kedah, Kuala Lumpur, Negeri Sembilan, Melaka, Labuan and Terengganu reporting 1 case each. On the flip side, 54 people were discharged today after recovering from the disease, and no new COVID-19 related deaths were reported today. 4 districts in Sabah have been placed under lockdown to curb the spread of COVID-19. Putrajaya has placed 4 districts in Sabah under the administratively enforced Targeted Enhanced Movement Control Order starting midnight. Senior Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob said the 4 affected districts are Lahad Datu, Tawau, Kunak and Sampurna. Throughout the targeted enhanced MCO period, residents are not allowed to leave, while non-residents and visitors are not allowed to enter the affected areas. He said all business activities would be stopped except for those selling essential items, and medical bases would be stationed in the 4 areas. All the roads going in and out will be closed. The measure is due to the spike of COVID-19 cases in those areas. The restriction will be imposed until October 12, involving almost 1 million residents. According to Ismail, the Health Ministry has reported 1,195 cases in those areas as of Monday and has advised the government to implement the restrictions. Our Agong is well and will return to Istana Negara soon. Yang di-Pertuan Agong Sultan Abdullah Sultan Ahmad Shah is undergoing follow-up treatments at the National Heart Institute and is expected to return to Istana Negara soon. In a statement released this afternoon, Royal Household Comptroller Ahmad Fadli Samsudin said Sultan Abdullah initially underwent treatment for food poisoning at IJN and later also received medical intervention following a discovery of a sporting injury. He said Sultan Abdullah's treatment for food poisoning began on September 21st when he was admitted to IJN. Medical intervention started after an MRI scan on September 22nd showed Sultan Abdullah suffered injury while playing sports. Ahmad Fadli said the medical intervention on Sultan Abdullah's joints in his knees and ankles was successfully completed on September 24th. He added that His Royal Highness is now in a stable condition and there is nothing to worry about. Sultan Abdullah is scheduled to return to Istana Negara soon after completing follow-up treatments. Ahmad Fadli said Sultan Abdullah is touched by the people's concern and prayers for him. PKR President Anwar Ibrahim had on September 23rd claimed that he had secured a majority in the Dewan Rakyat to form a new government to replace Muhyiddin Yassin as Prime Minister. Anwar had sought an audience with the king, however the ruler could not meet him last week as His Majesty was still in hospital. Coming up next, another 1 million people are expected to die from COVID-19 before the vaccine is widely available. The WHO says the global COVID-19 death toll could hit 2 million before the vaccine is in wide use. The global death toll from COVID-19 could double to 2 million before a successful vaccine is widely used and could be even higher without considered action to curb the pandemic, according to an official at the World Health Organization.
It's certainly unimaginable, but it's not impossible, because if we look at losing 1 million people in 9 months, and then we just look at the realities of getting vaccine out there in the next 9 months, it's a big task for everyone involved to, Marianne just outlined the issues of listing, there's the issue of scale-up, there's the issue of funding these vaccines, there's the issue of distributing these vaccines, and then the issues of acceptance. And beyond that, with the work we still have to do in controlling this disease. And remember, we have things we can do now to drive transmission down and drive down the number of deaths.
Mike Ryan said young people should not be blamed for a recent increase in infections, despite growing concerns that they were driving its spread after restrictions and lockdowns were eased around the world. Rather, indoor gatherings of people of all ages were driving the pandemic, he said. The number of deaths about 9 months since the novel coronavirus was discovered in China is nearing 1 million.
And we are seeing in a number of countries right now an increasing trend in cases. And part of that is due to the fact that we have better surveillance. And so countries are in a much better position now to be able to detect cases. But what is worrying to us is an increase in hospitalizations and an increase in bed occupancy for hospitalizations and also in ICU.
The WHO is continuing talks with China about its possible involvement in the COVAX financing scheme, designed to guarantee fast and equitable access globally to COVID-19 vaccines, a week after the deadline for committing passed. Meanwhile, Mike confirmed that Taiwan has signed up to the scheme even though it is not a WHO member, bringing the total to 159 participants. Some 34 are still deciding. Talks with China also include discussions of the world's second-largest economy potentially supplying vaccines to the scheme, he said. The UN agency published on Friday draft criteria for the assessment of emergency use of COVID-19 vaccines to help drug makers as vaccine trials reach advanced stages. The document will be available for public comment until October 8th. Earlier on Friday, a Chinese health official said the WHO has given its support for the country to start administering experimental coronavirus vaccines to people even while clinical trials were still underway. Thousands of protesters gathered in central London over the weekend to protest against the British government's recently toughened COVID-19 restrictions. Protesters at a central London anti-lockdown rally scuffled with police officers on Saturday who were trying to break up the demonstration because of a lack of social distancing. Police said 9 officers were injured and 16 people arrested for offences including assaulting an officer and violent disorder in the second weekend of trouble at a demonstration against pandemic restrictions. Chanting freedom and carrying banners saying "We do not consent" and COVID-19 84, thousands of people crammed into the square to protest. Several told broadcasters that they believed the pandemic was a hoax created by the government to control people. The police ordered the protest to disperse because demonstrators had failed to socially distance and wear masks, meaning it was no longer exempt from national rules that limit gatherings to 6 people. Video footage showed officers briefly using batons to drive the protesters back. Saturday's demonstration followed a similar event last weekend when 32 people were arrested. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson tightened COVID-19 restrictions this week, telling people to work from home if possible and ordering pubs and restaurants to close early after cases started to rise. The UK recorded 6,042 new cases of COVID-19, official figures showed on Saturday, and 34 new deaths among those who tested positive for the virus within 28 days. And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'll be back with more tomorrow, same time, same place. I'm Bersatu Michael. Thank you for watching.